when even the pleasure of sex cannot be satisfied. Human beings self-created dopamine that can bring pleasure. This is the meaning of sadomasochism-masochism, SM for short. The former, through the control of power, realizes the desire for power that is missing in the real world. The latter, through sexual intercourse under obedience and humiliation, uses painful repression to accumulate pleasure that can erupt at a rapid pace. Sacrifice and offering are both exchanges and meanings that human beings attach to themselves to increase the fulfillment of their psychological needs. The crushed cherry blossoms have more value than the cherry blossoms themselves. The cherry blossoms themselves are simply the beauty of nature, reflected in the eyes of people. The destroyed cherry blossoms are the action of man, attached to his heart with more emotion. Follow me and subscribe to my channel. Your support is what motivates me to pick up the mysteries. I look forward to more people joining me in exploring those original SM stories in Arno Will's magnum opus, Ideas and Myths. Both men and gods fear the truth. The cowardice of mortals avoids seeing the truth. The gods and heroes, on the other hand, destroy the truth according to the power in their hands. Poseidon's rape of the beautiful priestess Medusa represents an insult and mockery of the truth. Athena punishes the insulted and victimized Medusa by turning her into a snake demon, distorting the truth itself. Legend has it that those who see Medusa's serpent-haired head will be turned to stone, which represents the fear and avoidance of the truth within people. Perseus' beheading of Medusa represents the fact that everyone can be an accomplice to power when it is safe to do so. The so-called heroes under power. By placing Medusa's head into Hesperides' kibyssus, mankind can thenceforth pretend that there is no more truth, although the truth is actually always gazing at despicable and cowardly mankind. Matthew Prior was an English poet and diplomat. He lived at a time that coincided with the glorious revolution in English history. This revolution was a major victory for British constitutionalism, but a setback in mankind's quest for equal rights. For details, please refer to the Millennium AD, Gamble on the Fate of the Nation. At the time, far to the east, China was in the midst of one of the darkest eras in its history, the Qing dynasty. Matthew Prior lived in the same era as Nalin, the most famous poet of the Qing dynasty. His poem Truth and Falsehood, a Tale, illustrates a stark truth.
Once on a time, in sunshine weather, falsehood and truth walked out together, the neighboring woods and lawns to view, as opposites will sometimes do. Through many a blooming mead they passed, and at a brook arrived at last. The purling stream, the margin green, with flowers bedecked, a vernal scene, invited each itinerant maid to rest a while beneath the shade. Under spreading beech they sat, and passed the time with female chat, while each her farts the other feigned. At length, quoth falsehood, sister truth, for so she called her from her youth, what if, to shun yon sultry beam, we bathe in this delightful stream, the bottom smooth, the water clear, and there's no prying shepherd near? With all my heart, the nymph replied, and threw her snowy robes aside, stripped herself naked to the skin, and with a spring leaped headlong in. Falsehood more leisurely undressed, and laying by her tawdry vest, tricked herself out in truth's array, and crossed the meadows tripped away. From this cursed hour the fraudful dame of sacred truth usurps the name, and with a vile perfidious mind, roams far and near to cheat mankind. False sighs suborns and artful tears, and starts with vain pretended fears, in visits vain still appears most wise, and rolls at church her saint-like eyes. Tarks very much, plays idle tricks, while rising stock her conscience pricks. When being, poor thing, extremely gravelled, she secrets soaped and all unravelled, but on she will, and secrets tell, of John and Joan, and Ned and Nell, revealing every one she knows, as fancy leads, beneath their rose. Her tongue so voluble and kind, it always runs before her mind. As times do serve she slily pleads, and copious tears still show her needs. With promises as thick as weeds, speaks pro and con, is wondrous civil, today a saint, tomorrow devil. Poor truth she stripped, as has been said, and naked left the lovely maid, who, scorning from her cause to wince, has gone stark naked ever since, and ever naked will appear, beloved by all who truth revere.
The opposite of the truth is the lie, but they always appear in pairs. The goal of a lie is to cover up the truth, and the best way to do that is to keep people from looking at the truth and believing it. This story comes from The Blinding of Truth by Falsehood, a story from the 19th dynasty during the New Kingdom period in Egypt. The New Kingdom was the ancient Egyptian empire that lasted from the 16th century BC to the 11th century BC. This period of ancient Egyptian history includes the 18th, 19th, and 20th dynasties. Radiocarbon dating places the establishment of the New Kingdom between 1570 and 1544 BC. That was Egypt's most prosperous period and marked the peak of its power. In the story The Blinding of Truth by Falsehood, Jereg, representing falsehood, accuses Mot, representing truth, to the Egyptian god Enkidu. Enkidu was the earliest group of gods in ancient Egypt, totaling 9. Enkidu believed Greg's accusations, sentenced Greg to blind Mot, and forced Mot to watch the door for Greg. Although Mot did his duty, the lies could not hold the truth, and Greg ordered 2 servants to take Mot to the desert so that lions could eat Mot. The servants let Mot live, and a beautiful lady takes Mot and marries him, and has a son. This son grows up to know the truth and pleads his case to Enkidu. Convinced that Mot was long dead, Greg swore to God that he would willingly blind himself if he found Mot alive. When Mot showed up, the god ruled that Greg had blinded himself and was watching the door for Mot. Man is always blind to the truth, but at the same time, the truth is the mirror of man, reflecting his own heart. Therefore, the punishment of blindness is a metaphor for man's refusal to look into his own heart in the face of the truth. The naked truth has 2 meanings. First, the truth has no pretense, unlike lies, which are always dressed in brightly colored clothing. Secondly, the naked truth mirrors the human being himself, creating a huge contrast between the shame of reality and the glory of ideals, causing human beings to choose to turn a blind eye to the truth even when they see it. Myths are the storytelling narratives of ancient human concepts, and the ancients, who were not imprisoned in the forbidden zones of thought, condensed the essence of their thinking in these legends. This is the reason why we would rather go further to reveal the fables of ancient thinking than to explore the lies beneath the beautiful veneer under the yoke of political correctness. Prometheus' father, Iapetus, was responsible for holding down the western limb of Uranus when Cronus emasculated their father, Uranus. Thus Iapetus later became the pillar responsible for supporting the western sky. After losing the Battle of Titan, Iapetus was imprisoned in Tartarus. His son, Prometheus' brother Atlas, also known as Atlas Telemann, was responsible for continuing to hold up the western sky. Atlas was also known as Enduring Atlas. Atlas witnessed the heroic deeds of 2 demigods, the cruelty of Perseus and the deceit of Hercules. Cruelty and deceit are also the original evils of human beings. Hesiod was an ancient Greek poet generally thought to have been active between 750 and 650 BC, around the same time as Homer. He regarded the 4 sons of Iapetus as the common ancestors of mankind. Thus, the bad qualities of mankind are inherited from these 4 gods. Prometheus, the forethought, for cunning. Epimetheus, the afterthought, for stupidity. Atlas, the hard and enduring, for excessive boldness. And Menetius, the doomed might, for rash violence. Iapetus, as the ancestor of mankind, is considered equivalent to Japheth, son of Noah, who was the ancestor of the Japhetites. The Japheths are considered to be Indo-European speaking people. In Ovid's narrative, Atlas is the king of a country located in northwest Africa. According to Plato, Atlas' kingdom was Atlantis. There is also a legend that he was the king of Mauritania. Of course, some scholars believe that Atlas and Prometheus' brother would have been two people. Perseus came to the kingdom of Atlas, claiming to be the son of Zeus and asking for asylum. Fearing that Zeus' son would steal his golden apples from his orchard, Atlas refused to admit Perseus. So Perseus showed Atlas the head of Medusa and turned Atlas into stone. Atlas's head became mountains, Atlas Mountains. His shoulders became ridges, and his hair became woods. The Atlas Mountains are located in the Maghreb of North Africa. Its highest peak, Tubkal, is located in central Morocco, at an elevation of 4,167 meters or 13,671 feet above sea level. The Atlas Mountains stretch for about 2,500 kilometers or 1,600 miles through Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, separating the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic takes its name from the mountains. Andromeda was the daughter of Cepheus, king of Ethiopia, and Cassiopeia. Like Medusa, her beauty was her original sin. The haughty and vain Cassiopeia boasted that her daughter, Andromeda, was more beautiful than all the Nereids. She forgets that beauty without the ability to protect it is but prey to the jockeying for power. Daris was one of the 3,000 nymphs Oceanids. She married Nereus, the old man of the sea, and gave birth to 50 beautiful daughters, known as Nereids. They lived in the Mediterranean Sea in the company of Poseidon. Of the 50 Nereids, Amphitrite was favored by Poseidon. Amphitrite fled to the Atlas Mountains to protect her virginity. Poseidon sent many creatures to search for her, and a dolphin came across Amphitrite and convinced her to marry Poseidon. In return for the dolphin's help, Poseidon planted her in the sky as a constellation Delphinus. Cassiopeia's braggadocio aroused the wrath of Amphitrite, who appealed to the sea king. Poseidon sent the sea monster Ceto to attack Ethiopia. Panicked, the Ethiopian king, Cepheus, sought the advice of Ammon, a god-king in African-Egyptian mythology. Ammon gave an oracle that the wrath of the sea could not be appeased unless the king sacrificed his daughter Andromeda to Cetus for devouring. So Andromeda was stripped naked and chained to a rock by the sea at Jaffa to be sacrificed. BDSM is a sexual activity between adults. Here B is for bondage, D is for discipline or dominance, S is for sadism, and M is for masochism. The earliest BDSM records are associated with the Sumerian mythological goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar and Astarte. Inanna was the holy goddess and mistress of the heavens, or queen of heaven, in Sumerian mythology. In Sumerian, she is usually pronounced Ninanna. She was the god of sex, reproduction, and war in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, and was also associated with divine law and political power, as well as the planet Venus, holding the sweet waters of rivers and fertile male semen. Inanna was believed to be the prototype of Aphrodite and Athena. Inanna was especially beloved by the Assyrians, who elevated her to the highest deity in the pantheon, above Ashur, their national god. She is the Inanna/Ishtar mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. Inanna, also known as the Lady of Heaven, is either on the road to war or on the road to sex. She was on the road every day looking for young men to have sex with, and with human men, she needed water, the symbol of life. She was the patron saint of the ancient city of Uruk. The city was also known as the Holy City of Prostitutes, and it was believed that Inanna was the protector of prostitutes and taverns. The Temple of Inanna means House of Heaven. The world's first sacred prostitutes were found here, and the priestesses here represented the goddess Inanna and provided sexual services to worshippers in the name of worship. Rituals such as cross-dressing and transfiguration are described in ancient writings, such as the Inanna in Ebe and the Hymn to Inanna.
Imbued with pain and ecstasy, bringing about imitation and journeys of altered states of consciousness, punishment, moaning, ecstasy, lament, and song, participants exhausting themselves in weeping and grief.
In Japan, cherry blossoms represent the ultimate beauty and the shortness of life. The cherry blossom petals crushed by the spring winds and scattered all over the ground also represent the other side of the destroyed beauty, the beauty of mutilation. Beauty, with powerlessness and brokenness, is also the mirror image of ordinary people in the era of rampant power. The forbidden beauty of the bondage attracts Perseus, who was passing through the area in his flying shoes. Falling in love at first sight, Perseus asks Cepheus for a promise to marry Andromeda if he can kill the sea monster. After receiving a definite answer, Perseus uses Medusa's head to turn the monster into stone. This act, which we have already analyzed in the previous section, represents repelling the demon by exposing the sexual organs in Freud's psychoanalysis. But before that, Andromeda had been betrothed to her uncle, Phineus, king of Thrace. At the wedding site of Perseus and Andromeda, Phineus swung his spear and attacked Perseus. Perseus again used Medusa's head and turned Phineus and his retinues to stone. Poseidon elevated the slain sea monsters into the sky and turned them into Cetus. Believing that Cassiopeia should not escape punishment, he placed her in the sky and chained her to the throne as Cassiopeia. This constellation originally represented the chair of torture. After her death, Andromeda was also placed in the sky by Athena as Andromeda. This constellation is pictured with Andromeda's limbs forced to unfold into a tortured position. In the end, two women have been forced to undergo the absolute punishment of BDSM forever, simply because of their beauty. After living at the court of Cepheus for about a year, Perseus and Andromeda had a son, Perses. Because Cepheus had no male heir, Perses was adopted. Greek mythology identifies Perses as the ancestor of the Persians. Only then did Perseus and Andromeda leave Ethiopia. Cepheus became a constellation named Cepheus after his death. Perseus became a constellation named Perseus when he died. The English poet John Keats is known as the second generation of Romantic poets, along with Byron and Shelley. In the East, Nayland Zingd, the most famous poet of the Qing dynasty, had been dead for more than 100 years. Subsequently, Gong Zizhen, a literary scholar of the Qing dynasty, was deeply concerned about the decline of the Chinese literary scene under confinement and was speaking out.
A storm is urgently needed to wash away the deadness of China. No horses are neighing. Silence reigns. I urge the God of heaven to revitalize his spirit. Don't be formal and send down more talents.
John Keats, in On the Sonnet, expounds on the power of bondage on the human mind. The more beautiful it is in bondage, the more it presents a fleeting and moving force. This is also in the poem, a paraphrase of the story of Andromeda. The poem also recites another pair of human contradictions, rebellion and bondage.
If by dull rhymes our English must be chained, and like Andromeda, the sonnet sweet, fettered in spite of pained loveliness, let us find out if we must be constrained, sandals more interwoven and complete to fit the naked foot of poesy. Let us inspect the lyre and weigh the stress of every chord and see what may be gained by ear industrious and attention meet. Misers of sound and syllable, no less than Midas of his coinage, let us be jealous of dead leaves in the bay-wreath crown. So, if we may not let the muse be free, she will be bound with garlands of her own.
Truth frustrates, lies delight. Please follow me, share me, and I look forward to you and me, with many more. Tearing away more of the masquerade of truth and myth, the poeticized philosophy,